Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Great Connect podcast. I'm Carrie Allen, your host and founder of the Human Array. And today, the Human Array team joins me yet again to talk about all things holistic health. While this journey is never ending, it's really important to us to share a little bit about how we each started and where we might recommend you start based on learning what worked and didn't work for us. So, we're going to dig in and share a little bit of our personal stories and recommendations to help you navigate if you're just dipping your toe into the holistic health waters. So, let's talk where and how we got started. I can already think of probably 3 or 4 different inflection points in my life, but I'd love to hear what comes up for you guys when you think about how it started. What was that moment for you?
I can jump in.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this because I agree. There's a couple different moments that stand out to me, and maybe I'll just talk about two of them. They're separated by some time, but I feel like I don't know what happened. There was this moment where food became very clear to me that there was something going on here. And actually, I this probably started because I did a Whole 30. I don't know if anyone even remembers Whole
Oh,
30, but
yeah.
that was like a thing during a time. And I don't know, I got like invited into like that space to do a challenge or whatever. Um, and while I don't really do that anymore, that period of time was really important for me because it started educating me on reading labels and just really getting clear on what was in my food, which I previously hadn't really been doing that. And that was just really eye-opening. I just feel like I learned so much through that process. And I went on in classic, like Amanda has ADHD fashion, went on like 25 research tangents. I remember I read this book called Wheat Belly that like really at the time was like, oh my God, I'm learning so much. And again, while I have come into sort of more balance, because when I look back at that time, it was really intense. Like I got really sort of strict about how I really had to know everything about what was going into my body, which I think is great, but if you take it too far, it can become a bit overwhelming. Um, so I would say that that time though really helped me connect with that education that I needed of like what is in my food. And once I sort of moved through the journey of being a bit sort of like locked into that lifestyle and I eased up on that, I was able to make some more decisions about, okay, like what now really makes sense for me. I have this body of knowledge and I can be, now that I feel really educated, right? Like I can make decisions that really work for my life that don't have to follow some sort of like strict plan. So
Yeah.
I would say that, and that was back in like 2013 for me, that whole time. And I didn't have kids yet. But the next thing that really stands out to me was when I had kids. And this is going to be maybe like in a different lane of holistic living, but I think it still might resonate with some people. When I had my second baby, I really wanted a more natural birth experience. The first time around was just not what I wanted. Like it was very heavy, like medical interventions, things like that. And the second time around, I just wanted a different experience. And so I did a hypnosis program for my sort of like managing of labor. And that was like an awakening moment, that to be able to manage my energy, my pain, my emotions, even through that process, I think set me on a different tangent. So I guess to tie it all together, my first thing that I shared was really about my body. I know it's all interconnected, but it really helped me learn more about my body and like what foods are best for my body, right? Um, that's sort of my journey outside of this like program into like what works for me. And then I think the second thing was more just like, oh my gosh, my energy, my ability to have maybe like a connection to something else. And that feels like more of like a spiritual lane that opened up for me.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I feel like that was a long journey into my story, but thank you for listening. And I'm
No,
curious,
I love that. And I remember when you did the Whole 30,
we were
which
at
was,
Zipcar together back.
yeah. Yeah. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yay. Okay. Who wants to go next?
Well, mine was more of a family situation. I had an aunt that had gotten breast cancer. It came back, and when it came back with a vengeance. and she had done chemo radiation, did not know. And my mom got diagnosed weeks after, or weeks before her second diagnosis. So they were kind of going through it at the same time. Did a lot of clinical trial things, did a lot of research on everything. And the doctors really, I have 56 family members on that side of the family. So they were really interested in, we live all over the country. So they were, between all the women, wanted to know a lot about us and our, our locations and our diet, things like that. And the knowledge that came from them going through that was just astonishing to me, especially the chemo and radiation side. And basically her second round, she was diagnosed with maybe 6 months to live because there were 16 tumors in her lungs. And I think it's 9 years now. She has no cancer, and she did no radiation, did no chemo, and everything was based on diet and supplements. Everything was cured through that. So I was like, oh wait, wait, what? So we were all pretty sold. I mean, it was a kind of a tall tale when it all happened. It was so overwhelming, but they convinced us right away. Like, it wasn't even a convincing thing. They just showed us that the chemo and radiation had made her sicker and more sick. And that's where the cancer came back. It truly was the reason it came back. And that the diet and the supplements and the vitamins could cure it, and she could be done and healthy with it. So it became our lifestyle after that, because also it was maternal, grandmother, aunt, and mom, and then having a daughter as well, and lots of nieces and nephews. We were all very just like, let's do this. And it all started with diet. Everything was, and that would be also the connection of what I would tell people. And when I do tell people is when they get started, is just the stuff in the package, just looking to see how many ingredients are on it and starting there and just asking questions. But everything that was the journey of, I just didn't want to end up in that place. And and it kind of was like, they all made it sound like, look, you've got terrorists on the plane, your plane's hijacked. It's just how are you going to go down? So it was our mission to kind of go, let's just change everything so that we have a better chance if it comes. So it always diet, all supplements, everything to start. And then then you found out all the other products and all the other things that were tainted with the same type of things. And then it became, with little kids, it was like, oh gosh, that's not going in their body. If it's not going in mine, it's definitely not going in theirs. And so that was our journey. And I hate that they had to go through it, but I'm so thankful they have, because I think that they've created now a generational, trend between all of our family. Even my kids in college are just not, they're pretty obsessed with what they eat and what they put in their body too. So I'm grateful for that. So.
Wow. Wow. It's really interesting, like, to think about. I think I've heard so many people talk about how they're kind of like, feel like the only one in their family that are making
Mhm.
these shifts. And so it's really interesting to hear your story of like almost the whole family shifting at the same time. That's really, wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
powerful.
it was easy when I lived around them. And then once I moved away, several states away, and it wasn't the norm. They're very active here where I live, so that's a lot different, but the norm is not that. So that became the influence of that, is doing it away from all of them. And that was like on an island by yourself and trying to navigate it.
Yeah, it's not easy for sure. Christina, what's your story?
I can go next. I shared a little bit of my story in our last podcast, but I think that was just almost like everybody's kind of talking, like there were a few inflection points. The first one was in 2006. I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. I was told there's no cure. I was told I would be on, I would be taking some type form of medicine for the rest of my life to live a normal life. I was it was my last semester of university. It was a shock. I've been an athlete my entire life. So to feel as weak as I did when I got diagnosed, it was frightening. And I think the lesson that I learned in the initial years of having that diagnosis was my mind body connections. So it was a lot of just navigating, how to stay calm in stressful situations, understanding that you can't do it all. That was a big one for me. I couldn't just say yes to everything. I really had to be selective in what I said yes to. And I was still in my early 20s, and so that was very difficult to have to say no or say yes to everything, and then I would feel those consequences. So it was a lot of balancing the guilt of having to say yes or no, but that was a big lesson, and I still carry it to this day with confidence. But it was very difficult at that age to not be able to do everything that I wanted to do. So that was my first integration into this new just understanding, oh, everything's connected.
Mhm.
And the first thing that we implemented was actually intermittent fasting.
Mm.
And I don't know if anybody got introduced to Bulletproof coffee. It was, you put, butter and MCT oil, and then you don't eat until the afternoon, and that worked really well for me to feel like that was the first thing that became just very regular. I was actually just talking to my husband earlier today, like, why don't we actually don't do that in particular anymore? We've implemented other things and still do some form of fasting. But that was like my first, like, oh, this whole world of like other ways of doing things. So that was probably the first phase. The second phase was I had a flare up. So I was doing really well, but then I had a very stressful period in my life, and I had a really bad flare up again, where I couldn't do a lot on my own. I was very weak. As I started to get better, I understood that I didn't have a lot of muscle mass. I didn't have a lot of I was an athlete most of my life. That kind of faded when I went to college, just because I don't know, your lifestyle changes, and it wasn't a part of my everyday. And that's when I found yoga.
Mm.
And yoga was that it kind of incorporated everything, mind, body, soul. Like it was honestly after my first yoga practice, I remember I did it in person. I didn't know what I was doing. I just showed up, and I cried at the end just because I could move. I could, because I think it was just self strength. It was being able to hold my body up and move around. And I will never forget that first class. And then that became something I did regularly for weeks at a time. And then discovered, I got a yoga teacher who taught handstands. And I was a gymnast growing up, so it was this nice incorporation to like find strength again, and being able to do that, so that if I got a flare up again, I didn't I didn't get so weak so quickly. I had some muscle mass to hold on to during those time periods. So that changed everything. That completely switched, and I was like, I can do more than just this to feel better, feel good in my body. And I really was at the point of like, I don't want to have to take some form of medicine every day for the rest of my life. There has to be another way. And that's when food really became kind of, that was like, I didn't grow up knowing how to cook. My dad was the cook in our household. I never really was taught how to cook, and I think we've talked about this, as well. Just I didn't learn. My husband grew up in a very European household, so he was just around cooking all the time. So he would cook for me, and I would bake because I could follow a recipe, but just cooking was just this unknown to me. And so I started to get those meal kits,
Mhm.
um, just to learn to get confident in cooking. And ever since then, just being able to cook my own food just introduced me to like the strength of food and what I'm putting in my body. And then you start looking at all the ingredient labels, and you're like, oh, I can make this at home with like three ingredients. You start to not only understand like what food is and the different ways of eating food, but I could make it myself. I could actually feed my family. So it was kind of like three phases. And yeah, so that's kind of like my journey, and still learning, still growing, still understanding food, but very thankful. It's like it's one of those blessings in disguise. I like getting diagnosed so young, and it kind of set me on this path that I probably wouldn't have been on without that.
Yeah. So fascinating. As I'm listening to everybody's stories, I'm thinking about the sheer volume of inflection points that have transpired for me in
Mhm.
this. And every time I hear somebody else mention something, I'm like, oh, right. And I like go back a couple years. I'm like, oh, wait, there was another one before that, another one before that. And I mean, I don't think we'd be building this business if there weren't lots of them for us. But um, I'm having a hard time choosing one. Um, It's interesting because, Christina, I think we've talked about this before too. Like, yeah, everything came out of a can or a jar or a box when I was a kid and was usually cooked in the microwave, sometimes the oven, but that was usually a plastic container in the oven. So, I'm lucky
Box
I'm
mashed
still.
potatoes was like I will never like, and I love them,
I
but
know.
they were out
The
of. I
TV
don't
dinner,
know if that's
the
the
TV
best.
dinner with the little
Yes,
brownie in the middle, that was the best thing on
the
the
best.
planet, that little brownie.
Hmm.
Those were really good.
The warm brownie.
Well, just
Yes.
imagine the school lunches we had that were like, they were so good and they were probably so bad.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's what made them so good.
Yeah, right. I think, I also very athletic and things as a child. And so I never really thought about health in that way because it just wasn't, I could eat anything, I could do anything. I do remember one time in high school, I had decided, uh, such a simple thing, but I was like, I am gonna lose a little bit of weight because I probably did not need to do that in any way, shape, or form. But I was actually delivering like mail or whatever to each of the classrooms, and I stopped drinking milk first thing for breakfast, and I lost a bunch of weight. And I remember one of my good friends saying, no. And I was like, no, I just added steps and I took out the milk. And she's like, that doesn't happen. I'm like, okay. But I think it's always been a part of me that I've always been curious and interested in that way. But if I could choose two, maybe three core inflection points very early before like other things kind of stacked on top of them. One, when I lived in New York, I did Bikram yoga for the first time. And not that I hadn't done other types of yoga and lots of different types of exercise, but the thing about Bikram is I remember very clearly him talking about when we got into different poses, that those were compressing different organs, which allowed the organs to release certain things. And the connection with the movement and the organs doing more than just like being organs, um, was very poignant for me. I just remember that has stuck with me for a really, really long time. And quite frankly, I still would love. There's not really as many of those around anymore, but it felt really, really good to me. And I would torture myself through that 90-minute class for everything. Like it was the best. Um, so that one, thinking about the mind body connection and like really understanding like what I was doing with my body more so than just exercising for exercise sake. And then I also have a husband who cooks, and that, you know, he's like, do we have to buy the green beans in a can? Why can't we buy the fresh green beans? I'm like, I don't know. I've never done that before. Right. So, like, that wasn't like a moment in time. It's just been like a subtle shift that has been like really, really powerful and important for me. And then, um, my third one is definitely kids and just moving through that entire process. That didn't happen easily for me. So I learned a lot about that the reproductive system, my body, what was working, what wasn't. I read a lot of books. And the most important moment that I can remember, just like I can see myself in that Bikram class, like hearing him say that about the organ. I remember very clearly looking or reading something about a product that I had. It was like, you can have this on your body, but your baby can't have it on their body.
Yeah.
And that for me was just, wait, why? What's, I mean, I get that they're a baby, but how is it okay that there's things that go on my body and not theirs? Like, I just couldn't understand that connection. And so that started a whole chain of research for me. I had already kind of been into the empowerment side of, it's so cool. I don't need to buy a cleaning product. Do you know what baking soda can do? Oh my God, who knew what baking soda could do, right? Just the kind of empowerment side as I built my own home and family and kind of started to learn in that way, which is always something that's really struck me of, how did I miss how to live in this world? From like plants, food,
Mhm.
like how did we miss that? Where was that lesson? And did I skip that chapter? Like what happened there?
I don't
Why?
think it was taught. I don't I don't think we learned that
No.
lesson.
Well,
Right?
and also when it came to medicine, any kind of medical situation that came up, nothing made sense anymore. Like what you're talking
Mhm.
about with you when you're being pregnant and they were saying we couldn't have all those things. And you're like, but why not? Like, so now I don't want them ever.
Yeah.
Tylenol was a big thing even back then, and you were just like, well, then I shouldn't ever take it, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, but every medical situation after that, you questioned like the advice they were giving you because you were like, that doesn't, I need to know what's in that and why am I taking it and what are we doing? And it does create a domino effect with
Mhm.
everything because now but it causes so much research and so much squirrel hills that you just go die on because you're just like, now I need to know what's in everything
Yeah.
and you can't help it and you don't trust anyone and then you find those people and
Mhm.
now you're the most annoying person on the planet because you're like, I have 6 more questions. Could it be this? Could it be could I have your cell phone? Could I
Yeah.
like could we text in the middle of the night? Because you once you find that trusted resource, then you could go, okay, I could fast forward and not, but I am totally they make you question everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I even just moving through like the birthing process, and I unfortunately did not learn about what Amanda did, but I'm very jealous of that looking backwards. And at the same time, I was very into yoga. I wanted to have as natural a birth as I possibly could. I really believed in my body. I was terrified out of my mind, but also like I knew how powerful I could be. And it was really hard to surround yourself with
Mhm.
people who could hold you doing that, right? Like I got a doula because I was like, I don't know. Otherwise, I don't know if I'll be able to follow through because I'll succumb to the pressures of the environment, right? And I was very middle of the road. I wasn't necessarily somebody that was like trying to push the envelope. I knew many people that did like home births and water births and all those things. I wasn't quite comfortable going that full in, but I definitely wanted to be empowered and feel confident. And it's always interesting to me to kind of look back to each of those moments and see who was around me and how that supported me to keep going or keep exploring or feel safe in my exploration versus um, shamed, guilt. What are the other fun
Too
emotions that came
much.
up in those moments? Why do you ask so many questions?
You
Yeah.
have to, if you want the truth,
Yeah.
if you want to figure out what's right for you.
Yeah.
I think when you say that, Carrie, that your story about like your birth experience in my hypnosis program, part of our training, it was literally like a training program that you started way before the birth happened. They would have us imagine putting ourselves inside what was called a bubble of peace, for the very
Mm.
reason that you will be up against lots of different thoughts about what you are attempting to do. In this particular, story, it's using hypnosis as your pain management. But I think that really applies everywhere. I mean, that was probably one of my little wake up moments, like, oh, I can sort of like question the conditioning. I wouldn't have used that word back then,
Yeah.
right? But like I can I can question that and still somehow be safe. And yeah, sometimes there's going to be a lot of people that aren't going to get that. But I loved that concept of the bubble of peace. Like I'm staying within this because it's right for me. Um, and I think nowadays I can talk about it differently. Like I'll also be able to find the people who can support that. But it is really tricky when you're doing something
Mhm.
sort of against the grain,
Mm.
and to find like your stability in that, even if everyone's not understanding it. It's kind of I think part of the journey.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's definitely not easy. All
I
right.
have like
Yeah.
like with Western medicine, and I mean I had to lean on that heavily before I knew to question anything. Not to say I was questioning my doctor, but it was my first experience of being told something that I just couldn't wrap my head around and believe. I was just like, this doesn't make sense to me that this is just what my life is going to be like. And just to note, I'm not taking anything right now. I'm completely
Oh, that's
like
amazing.
medication free. I get blood work done still like every 6 months, and I still see a rheumatologist, and we have conversations. But even in conversations, you can tell my rheumatologist is like a little like off put by how well I'm doing.
Mhm.
And it's I had a rheumatologist for many years, and then she retired. So she actually recommended me to one of her students. And the difference between my older rheumatologist and my newer rheumatologist was a breath of fresh air, because they were more open to that
Mm.
conversation of, yes, like keep doing what you're doing, whatever you're doing, keep doing what you're doing, and would ask me what I was doing.
Yeah.
Versus like my other doctor was always afraid of me taking supplements because they didn't trust all the supplements out there, which granted, that is that there's that's valid as well, and you should be, careful of what supplements you're taking, but that's a whole other conversation. But that was really that felt good. It was like almost like it was like the universe is like
Yeah.
you need a new perspective, someone that it's generational. And so that I thought that was very interesting. So I still work with my rheumatologist, but I'm doing so much outside of just getting blood work and talking to my rheumatologist and listening to what, like, telling them, like, giving me like medicine to feel better. So it
Mhm.
wasn't that I didn't do that for many, many, many years. I was
Mhm.
actually on high doses of prednisone. And so I was on a steroid for a really long time just to feel better. So I think the blend of the two, I think, got me to this point. It's like I
Mhm.
couldn't get to this point without Western medicine, but without my curiosity and, questioning and research. But it wasn't easy to find all that information. It took years and years and years to get to this point. But all the things that I did along the way, I could feel like things shifting, and my blood work was getting better, and they were decreasing things. So it's just one of those things. It's like trust that voice,
Yeah.
and that'll guide you. And it's hard to you have to like almost hone in and work on listening to that voice, because there's so many messages being shared outside of that, because some people, that were in the same like position as me, almost thought, they're like, oh my gosh, you're doing other things that your doctor isn't telling you.
Yeah.
That was almost they were like scared for me,
Yeah.
and so it's still very can be controversial, like,
Mhm.
doing things outside of what your doctor is telling you, especially when you have something that I'm going to be, I'm going to live with for the rest of my life. But I'm now at the point where I can live a different lifestyle than I thought I could
Yeah.
because I
Manageable.
question things. Yeah.
Mhm.
So true, right? Like that support bubble is can be Western medicine as well, but also remembering that there's a lot of rheumatologists. And so if the one that you're working with, like getting to that confidence level, which is just mind blowing to me that that's where we are, right? That like this is the doctor that I see and they should know. But I also need to remember that if it doesn't feel right to me, I have the option to choose and change doctors. And that doesn't mean that everyone has each doctor is going to have the same perspective either. So taking back that was really hard for me too, right? Like I've had a couple of instances where it's like, wait a minute, I don't agree with that doesn't mean I throw everything out. It's just I want to find somebody that's going to listen and support and move with me and what I feel is right. And that feels like a really big challenge as well.
Well, and I can say with confidence that every time I had a doubt or a question, I was always right.
Yeah.
Like every time. Like
Yeah.
there's not a time that I went back and I'm like, well, they won this one. Like never. Like in all of it. And so I always it sounds like a total mom thing to say, but you're just like, no, I really have been every time I had that feeling of this
I
doesn't
have
seem right.
I have
Oh
my
yeah.
feet. I know. I have kept track.
You have your receipts. I love it.
You get well, and each time you get a little bit more confident and a little bit
Yes.
more
Yes.
confident. And
Yeah.
so I even remember when COVID hit, and regardless of all the controversial it went, it was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like I was questioning, you just question immediately. It wasn't even before there was stuff you were like, I just want to know what's in it. What's the deal? And it was before anybody really started asking any questions. And we had already been years into that.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of like, you know, I just was always thankful that I tell people all the time just to trust it because you're going to feel more confident each time you're right.
I think
Yeah.
once you see it in action, especially like with
Yep.
your story and how you just saw it transform, your family's life by just questioning things and doing things differently.
Yeah.
I think once you see it and or feel it, it becomes easier. I
Absolutely. It gives you
think
the confidence.
it's obviously hard to do when you don't have an example around you to point to and be like, it does work to question things, or it does work like outside of Western medicine. Like I think if I didn't have the experiences that I did, it probably would have taken me a lot longer
Mhm.
Oh,
to
for
get to
sure.
the point where I was questioning certain things. I was always a curious person. So it's like I would always question, but I wasn't asking the right questions or, guiding my questions specifically around my health and my well-being. And I'm just lucky I have a partner that he's pretty much the one. As soon as I got diagnosed, it was like 6 months into our relationship.
Mm.
And like, thank you for staying with me, by the way. I hope he hears this because that's a lot to take on. And he went into action, he did research, but he always had, I think he's from, like, he has a European background. And I just think I love that I have that as part of my life as well, because they do things differently than his childhood was different than my childhood in terms of like growing up and the food he ate and how they like even this approached like lifestyle. So I'm just very thankful that I had that immediately in my life. It was almost like he was meant. It was just like I was like,
Yeah.
you were obviously meant. I was obviously meant to meet you at the time I met you. I'm sorry that you had to, but he was very thankful that we got through it. And so he did a lot of the initial research, and I would just kind of go along with it. But then I was like, oh, there's something to this.
Right. Well, it's really important to have a trusted source that kind of helps you take each step, right? Because it is a vast sea of information, resources, perspectives, backgrounds. Like there's just so much to wade through. And so with that, I'd love to hear. So we've all waded through a lot, a lot, a lot. And we only touched on like the very beginning and a couple pieces of very beginnings because it's hard to pinpoint just one.
Mhm.
But based on everything we've all been through and the many different inflection points, if you could offer one piece of advice of where to start if somebody's curious or overwhelmed and scared and trying to figure out what do I do first? I hear all this information. How do I start? How do I proceed without overwhelming myself?
I think the first thing that comes up for me is just maybe taking like an inventory of your life in the moment that you're in and just noticing what is calling to you the most, because it can be really overwhelming to just be like, I have to fix everything all at once. And, obviously we all shared our stories. I would imagine it's the same for anyone who's listening. Like you could probably pinpoint something that feels like it's really present for you in this moment. And what is that thing? And maybe can you focus your attention on that, knowing that probably all the other things that could also get adjusted will happen at some point. But it's like picking a focus, I guess,
Yeah,
is what I want to say. And
agreed.
being really discerning about that. Like I get to decide which area of my life I feel will be most supported by just starting to lean in a little bit and learning and, not necessarily feeling like you have to get it all right or get it perfect right
Mm.
off the bat. And maybe I'm talking about the way my energy works because that's what I want to do. I want to like fix everything right now, no patience for any of
Yes.
it. But I think a way that feels less overwhelming for me, at least, is again what I'm saying, like, what is alive for me right now? Can
Yeah.
I lean into that?
Yeah.
Totally agree. Because it could be like, for example, sleep. Like, this sleep could be an issue, which is causing so many other issues if you're not sleeping well. But if you know you're not sleeping well, start there.
Yeah.
Start there with just sleeping better and realizing what that does to your body, your day, your anxiety. So then if you have an anxiety issue, don't throw all this, don't do all this at once, because that will not help your anxiety issue, because you just think you're just eating cancer with every chip you eat. It's terrible. So don't do that. But your anxiety lessens because you're getting more sleep, and each thing starts to ripple effect down. But it could be headaches every day. It could be, your stomach hurts after you eat every time. And like, I think there's so many things that you could go, oh yeah, that's me. That's me. I have that. So um I totally agree. I think there's a focus, and whatever you feel like is off is the place to start.
Yeah.
I think for me, I completely agree, and I think it's very easily to go down the all or nothing mindset when you first start. Once you start to notice or like understand that there's this other way of doing things, you're just like, okay, well, I got to fix everything, and you kind of have to remove yourself from that. And for me, and I don't know if it's because of just how old I am now and my story. For me, I wish that I found a movement practice earlier, because movement ties to the mind, which makes you just more steady to make all of these changes. I think it clears the mind. So for me, and then I think that ties into also learning about muscle mass, and especially as women, when we lose our muscle mass, and just learning about the body and like how that's connected. So for me, like movement and like strength training just kind of pop in my mind of something that I wish I blended into, like,
Mm.
especially just growing up as an athlete, but it wasn't an obvious thing because I was young and I could do all the things that I wanted to do. And I still can, thankfully, but I also felt my body not being able to handle those things. And it doesn't need to be this thing that you're doing 5 days a week. Like, I think that's the other thing that I've learned, that I would try to do all or nothing in terms of movement, and it would, and that's how, like, or like when you do it like a diet, it's like all or nothing. And I try, I don't diet anymore either. It's more just doing 15 minutes
Mhm.
here or there, or just doing a
Yeah.
little bit of a stretch every day. Just blend it in, and but don't overwhelm yourself, just do a little bit, just start. But I think for me, movement and like strength are something that I wish I just created a habit earlier on.
Mm. Mhm.
And that's kind of what pops as like the first step
Yeah.
with someone with my like story, I guess.
Yeah.
I love this. I love this. I think The one that I would offer is I'm trying, how do I say make good choices? No. No, you don't have to make good choices. The point being that like every day you make thousands of decisions. You don't have to make everyone perfectly or right, because I end up in decision paralysis basically because I can't make a decision because I want to research with the 75 tabs, or I want to I don't know yet. And so for me, it's a little bit of just make the best decision you can with the information you have at that moment, right? But if something is speaking to you, if your sleep is, and you say, okay, well, I've never gone to bed before midnight, but tonight I'm going to try 11:30. Like, just make one micro shift, right?
Mhm.
Like just each decision. You make so many throughout the course of the day. It is amazing to me how much can change if you just take a couple of those and make a slightly different decision, because you're bringing that awareness, right? Of like what's top of mind for me. The other piece then I would say with that, that for me is I love the movement, the sleep, the awareness, like what's really alive for me. The thing that was always very alive for me and still is cleansing, meaning I can make it's similar to the sleep or the movement, which is like I can make better decisions if my body is clear. And so for me, that looked like cleaning products, food, hydration, lots of different things. Again, small micro things. Yes, I did throw out everything in the cleaning closet and start over. That's how I do. I don't recommend that. That was not exactly well received by everybody else in the household. But, you know, thinking about what I'm taking in constantly, those are
Mhm.
just small things that I feel like I make a lot of decisions around every single day, that I can make tiny decisions that shift a little bit, right? Like maybe instead of buying the guacamole, I buy an avocado. And I'm still having the avocado, I'm still doing the things, but maybe I'm doing it just a little bit differently. Um, so those things just start to add up, in my opinion, as you start to navigate this, that it doesn't have to be a full sweeping change, but because we are doing so much every single day, how can we start thinking about that? And I think the more you clean out, the more you make those micro shifts about what you're putting in, putting on, breathing in, the more you will naturally want less of the things that are not as fulfilling ultimately. You'll cleanse your palate, you'll cleanse your senses. Like, I just think that that ends up leading you down the slippery
Down the
slope,
right.
whether you like it or not. So that's I guess where I would recommend. And it's okay if you fall down the rabbit hole. We are here to support you. We will talk about our own rabbit holes as we do, and all the different ways that you can get lost in that, because it's very natural. So do not beat yourself up, to Erin's point around like anxiety, right? Like there is a huge component about this that I don't think we talk about enough, which is don't create the anxiety within yourself of this chip is going to kill me. Like the chip is not going to kill you right in that moment.
Mhm.
Like it is okay. And next time you can make a different decision, because you do make so many decisions throughout the course of the day. So keeping yourself in your peace bubble, I think is really important.
I
So
like the peace bubble. I want to be in there. I want
yeah.
to join the peace bubble.
Imagine it. Just close your eyes and just imagine yourself in it
Yeah.
and then walk around in
Mm.
it. Never
Yes.
leave it.
Yes.
I'm afraid if I close my eyes now, it may not. I may just take a
You
little
may
nap.
not wake up.
But that sounds amazing.
Yes, I love it. Any last thoughts or tips that came up before we
I
close
would
out?
say the only thing that came like while you were talking, one of the things that just my like the journey of kind of trying to like, like just change up things. It's almost like I just trying to simplify
Mhm.
my life, if that makes sense. And that's like ingredients and like because when you start to understand all the different ingredients in your cleaning products or your food or your clothing or whatever rabbit hole you go down, it's very overwhelming. And I think what's a way to simplify that thing, and maybe start with your favorite thing. Like, what's your favorite thing to eat? Um, and how can you simplify the ingredients for that? Like, how can you learn how to make that thing yourself? Is there somewhere else that maybe sells that type of food that's has better ingredients in it? Is, because I don't think we can make everything all the time. We're human. We live a life. We have families. But that's kind of like what every like thing that I start to notice. It's like you can't do it all at once, but how can you simplify that? And again, start with your favorite. Like, I started with coffee. I don't know if we can, that's like a whole other that's a whole other thing. But coffee was one of the first things that I drink it every day. And I love my coffee. I'm not going to give up my coffee. But once you start to learn about coffee and coffee beans and all the different things that are involved in there, like, we made a replacement and made sure, like, like that was the first thing that we did, to just, it's one of our favorite things and something that we do every day. So simple, like creating a simple, I don't know if that's the right word, but like simplifying things.
Yeah.
And you'll start to understand, like, the baking soda, like you said earlier, like how powerful that is. And maybe you only need one thing to clean multiple things in your household, or vinegar, I think, is another one too. But that's just what, when you were talking, I was like, that's kind of the thread through everything that I've done.
Yeah. I like that. And I like the coffee example, right? Because also you didn't say, I'm not going to drink coffee. I'm just
Yeah.
going to figure out a better solution for myself because I love my coffee. And
Well,
that's an
you would have
important,
died without
yeah.
it. So let's just be honest. You can't.
It's just, yeah, we're not asking you to like give, like,
No,
I don't think
it's
I've
not an
given up
option.
anything,
Yeah.
like there are probably a few things that were okay to
Yeah.
like remove, but I found replacements.
Yeah.
And I think there is, and I think that's what we're here to do, to help. Like, we've done all this research. What are our replacements to get people started, I think would be
Well, I
super
have friends that
helpful.
stopped drinking, but there's a million non-alcoholic drinks for them that they
Yeah.
have options. And I love that because we all know how bad it is, but you kind of just want to still have a cocktail or a glass of wine or something. But they've found all the solutions. I'm like, that's amazing that there is that even
Yeah, there's
for
options,
that
right, for that
space.
now.
It's so if you can do it between coffee and alcohol and medicine, there truly is an alternative. I mean, that's I think the whole reason that it's called alternative medicine is because there's an option. There's
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
another option.
There sure is. There sure is. Well, this is awesome. Thank you
Yes.
guys for sharing your stories and like what sparked you. And yes, I think we added a few things to our list of topics we're going to dive into because
Yes.
so
Six
many
more.
shifts we've made. Yes. So we're going to dig into all of those in upcoming episodes. We really appreciate you tuning in to the Great Connect podcast. And if you have a topic, an area, a product, a health concern that you think you would love to hear us share about, we've covered a lot of ground in each of our journeys. So we would love to support you. Feel free to drop a comment and share what it is you'd like us to tackle, and we'll get it on the list. In the meantime, we'll see you soon. Have a great day, and we will see you on the Great Connect podcast next time.